welcome to the Rippa Hosting Podcast, where we talk all things marketing and technology with professionals in their industries and understand what's making them successful and what's new and changing in the marketplace. I'm Avon Collis, CRM and marketing specialist and all-around good guy. Today, I'm joined by Sean Sullivan from Cool Runnings Business Solutions and Ben Newsom from Physics Education, here to talk about the growing trend in online education and what's going on in those sorts of markets. Welcome, guys. How you going?
Doing well, thanks, Avon. Hi, Ben.
Hey, mate, how you doing? Thanks very much, Avon, for having us.
All good, all good. So why don't we kick it off with the physics education? Obviously, you guys can't spell Fizzics, which is unusual. However, tell us a bit more about it. What does it do?
Sure thing. Yeah, we can't spell, but we also have a bit of fun. We think we put some fun into science education. But yeah, so since 2004, we've been teaching science to several million kids now, face to face, doing programs into schools, preschools, vacation cares, and more. And also working with the corporate sector, doing social impact programs and using science as a vehicle for that. Have a lot of fun with it, but certainly in the last couple of years, been doing a lot of online things.
Several million is pretty epic.
Yeah.
I think that a lot of times people go, I'm thinking about your logo and I'm thinking like the little fizzing beaker over the top. And, I go, all right, well, an education group, is it like, I've spoken to a lot of education groups and they might go to a couple of schools, but this is quite significant. This is huge, like corporate impact stuff as well. Like,
Yeah, honestly, I didn't think it was going to happen years ago. It's the usual story of a business starting in the second bedroom, like genuinely so. But yeah, prior to COVID, we were definitely working with about 400 or 500 schools a year, face to face, but also dealing with all sorts of education programs around the world. And COVID certainly took that to a whole nother level, certainly in the online space.
you have quite a few people and certainly a lot of content that you've got to use and manage. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. So in terms of content, I mean, we run 45 programs out into schools and whatnot, but we also have quite a large website with several hundred free experiment resources. We have a couple of hundred podcasts. There's another couple of hundred teaching articles, a whole bunch of science trivia, which is, I mean, we have a couple of thousand, 3,000 to 5,000 people coming through our site a day because of it.
So you started like last week?
Yeah, you started last week. Why not? Let's keep going. Yeah, this has been going on for a couple of quite a few years building that website.
Yeah, wow. So what I guess is some of the challenges that you've had along the way?
Well, I mean, everyone's had their COVID world happen. For us, the challenge was that we did have a website that had a lot of great content for people to use. Problem is, it got a little popular. I mean, if you have a teacher share, hey, do this lesson, for example, and that's 30 students just for their own class. What if that gets shared out to a couple of teachers? It multiplies per teacher by 30 students. You kind of you can see how the mathematics starts to play out when it gets shared around to different schools around the place. Biggest challenge we had from an online side of things was making sure that website could work during National Science Week. And we had a lot of people coming through a science education website at that particular time.
I can imagine, and I can only imagine some of the technical back end issues that would have caused. And we're very fortunate today to have Sean here talking about those technical challenges. So, Sean, why don't you tell us a little bit more about what your role in this is?
Okay, well, yep, I'm Sean Sullivan, the Cool Runnings Business Solutions visionary. It's a company that I started back in under a different brand name back in 2010, and since then we've been working with clients such as Ben, taking them through their digital transformation journey. What that means in normal speak is we work with our clients to make sure that their stuff is up, and in this case online, and make sure that we do it as efficiently as possible, securely as possible, and automate as much as we can.
I can imagine that automation part would be very important, particularly with given the sheer volume of information that's going to be managed and even the people and the resources and the events and all those sorts of things.
It is, and if I could throw out just a couple of numbers very quickly, uh, wasted time. So if you're looking at a company, or a bit bigger than Ben's, but in that same, these are the numbers that I have. If you've got a company of around 50 staff, 5 times a day, 5 times a week, 50 weeks a year, if they're just wasting 2 minutes at those times, that what comes down to just over 2,000 hours for one full-time employee. So with Ben and bringing that back to Ben, what we had to do was allow him to scale without adding an extra burden of labour costs to his business. So yeah, automation is vital.
There was a pre-COVID. There was, and I can only imagine the numbers would be astronomically different to this now. But there was a Deloitte report came out that said that average revenue per employee in a non-digitally optimized company was about $94,000 on average, but $194,000 in a digitally optimized company. Like more than double to have that money and not have that headcount cost. That's phenomenal.
The beauty of automation is that one, it standardizes the process. But the second part there is it takes mundane tasks away from your employees, away from the people, so they can do more productive work. And that's where the money comes.
I suppose that would increase job enjoyment and the feeling that they're a little bit more important or valued or maybe even they now you've got more qualified people instead of low task sort of people that are on cheaper wages, or even conversely, you can push those tasks down the chain because the lower levels are more able to do bigger, better things.
Yeah, and for the owners, it gives them a peace of mind, and it also allows them to free their brain space up to work on the creative stuff, to actually start working on their business.
So, what were some of the technical challenges of working with the physics site and business and getting them up to and running?
The speed of implementation. So Ben needed to iterate and move very, very quickly during COVID, take advantage of opportunities, mitigate risks. So one of the challenges there was to be able to produce, to be able to be on a system that was scalable enough to be able to move up and down at any point in time that we needed to, so we weren't wasting resource. And I'm talking about taking the server spaces and that. The other challenge there working with Ben was actually was really just getting the time and in between the two companies to make sure that we had clear guidelines, we had a clear scope, and that we used a very iterative process. So that's how we handled it. And there were a few late nights early in COVID for Ben and I.
Yes, there were.
As he leaned on me as his sounding board for the pivot that he needed to make from an online and face-to-face company to a purely online company.
I think that everyone's had to have that little bit of a reality check in that there was already a massive trend towards digital, like online B2B commerce, B2C commerce, even before COVID, and it's been a huge slap in the face for everybody. This needs to happen now, and it's interesting what you say about that iterative process. I think that there's a lot of aha moments that come out of going through and like just understanding the capabilities and what the value is and what you can actually do. It's not until someone gets their foot in the door they then have another, oh, I can do that as well. Really? I had no idea. So,
Yeah.
so
I mean, one thing I can add to this too, by the way, is I mean, our team's in Australia and Sean's team isn't, and also our team spread across Australia, and everyone's dealing with remote things, and to be able to have a coherent document that everyone knows who's doing what when is very important in the iterative process.
Well, I think that you sort of mentioned earlier that you had an online presence before, and then you've really had to sort of not quite pivot, but like really focus in on the value of that online presence. How hard has that been?
Yeah, so some of the challenges were people, in some ways, fighting through the noise. So we've been doing virtual online programs, face-to-face, like live events through online things for over 10 years. But that didn't mean anything when everyone's suddenly doing it. It's
Mm.
just one of these things. So one of the very first things that we had to do right at the start of COVID was making sure that people actually knew and understood this with a very simple header banner that was right across all our website. There are online programs on this site for you and your classes while you're sorting things out. That was like a real quick instant win. Let's just do that straight away. But as we look sort of further forward, I mean, we'd cut our teeth for nearly 17 years on doing these live events, but completely neglected looking at online courses, at producing downloadable resources at a nominal cost. And so for us, especially as we slowly limp back into traditional live events, our team is actually focusing quite heavily on producing a lot of those and putting it right through the site even further. And we'll continue to do so. I don't see this as a COVID thing. I mean, a bit like what you're saying with the stats from Deloitte, this is a process that, a bit like our foot is now well and truly through the door. It's like, well, let's keep on going, right?
Mm. Well, I think COVID only sort of was an accelerator. I don't think for a lot of changes and those sorts of things they were already happening. So now it's just moving at a much greater rate of knots.
Yeah, it is absolutely. I mean, everyone's got their own different versions of what online, complete transformation can be. But I mean, I kind of look at it as it is a force multiplier. Of course, there's got to be time put into it to be able to produce, resources that the world values. That's you don't want to put something that's rubbish out there. But at the same point, if you get that real link between the technology working with the resource that people can access, and then strapping it together with a bit of marketing, every company in every industry sector can really make a huge hit, huge impact.
I, I think the thing that I like about these like technology changes is mostly it's empirical. Like there's a stat behind this has worked for someone else. No like feeling behind it. It's almost science.
It is. It's very objective, and I was actually going to bring that up. You asked how we knew and what we did.
Mm.
Getting the analytics in place on the site properly, and the goals, and all of those things to tell us the numbers that we actually needed, to get the heat mapping in place, to get the scroll mapping in place. So we could be with the iterations, we could be very quick. We've been having somewhere between 3 and 10,000, depending on the day visitors through the site. We could get very quickly, we could get accurate data and feedback. Only today have we been looking at something that's just been released, and based on the last 7 days of the heat mapping, we know exactly where we're moving things around on his landing page
Yeah.
that are going to give the most result.
100%. I mean, we're looking at landing pages of the homepage are somewhat important, and there's a box on our site that, despite all that traffic, not a single person was clicking on it. So you'd have to argue, why is it there? Or what else could you do with that, the digital property?
It's not there now.
Yeah, exactly. It's all gone. So that's a good example.
Yeah, it's expensive real estate, Avon. Anything that you can see above the hit me with a phone book, but above the fold. So for anyone that's listening, anyone that you can see on that first page of the website without scrolling down, that is prime real estate. That is your high street. You want it to be clear, concise, interactive, and convert.
Well, it's amazing. Like you think about that, and then you think about things like Google, and on that first page, there's literally just a search bar, a couple of other minor links, but they keep that as clean as possible. And there's a market perception of someone that does something um, reasonably well, or does one thing really well, is perceived as better that does several other things potentially also equally well. So they're just by that specialization bias, definitely getting rid of stuff, decluttering, really, really, really clever.
And I also think about, like, not only does it make it easy to traffic and go through the site and find the thing that you're looking for, it also affects download speeds, right? The more stuff that's shoved onto a page, the more the server has to serve it to the person who's trying to look at that page. It slows the whole thing down.
Mm,
And worse, what if the stuff you're trying to serve to that particular visitor is stuff they don't want in the first place? It
mm.
sort of it just clogs it up, right?
So, how important has speed been to you?
Massively. I mean, I would argue everyone would say the same thing. It's like trying to, I just want to find the restaurant. I just want to get on. What are you going to feed me? So for me, I don't care which industry. The faster the website, the better. For me, it is very important, and I think that's an ongoing process. I mean, iterative has come up a few times in this conversation,
Mm.
but it's something that can always be done because, I mean, I'm terrible with remembering the stats and reports and things. But I can vaguely remember some e-commerce thing saying for every 0.1 of a second that you shave off the load time, you get X amount return, and that's irrespective of, like, not changing a single thing on your site, just, letting that speed perform faster. So I feel like, well, if that's real tangible numbers that are actually, big powerhouse places are doing the stats on big e-commerce websites, how is that any different to an education website that needs to serve resources to a teacher? I mean, they're time poor. The last thing they want to do is go through a site that's chewing up their time. Even if the content's good, if they can't access it quickly, that's no good to them, and they'll move on.
And that, we've noticed, not noticed, it was one of the factors to move to Ripper.
Yeah.
Cool Runnings, we consolidated all our different servers around the globe and brought them all back home to Australia. We went with Avon and Ripper, and on the promise of faster speeds, and we have, as you said, you called it empirical data. Our speed has gone through the roof.
Yeah, and I can actually give you real data on that too, because I was looking at it just prior to this chat. So very much real data. So what we're doing with the other servers, we've got 4 seconds on server response time straight away. That's real data. Like, my own data is 4 seconds faster. That's 4 seconds per page, per person, per day, times 3 to 5,000, 10,000 visitors. That's a lot of time that's not being wasted in the education community, let alone the potential opportunity for us to convert.
Well, conversion aside, like every time people visit a page, they're learning something. So
Exactly right, which is the whole point, right?
yeah, so now they might visit 10 more pages in the hour that they're there. So that's all good stuff as well for education.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. I mean, we're parents and kids are using our site by far more than people who are potentially going to spend a dollar.
so how important is the right foundations, I guess?
Don't choose one that's shaky. So yes, very important. Sean?
Had the right foundations for the right time, and a lot of people do this with any technology. At that time that they made the choice, they might have made it for the right decisions. The business requirements change, the technologies change, just what's available changes, the offers change from suppliers and vendors. You need to be going back and reviewing that on a regular basis.
Hmm.
And if it's not working, you need to be big enough to say, let's throw it out.
Yeah. I
If there
mean,
is a business case for it, you just need to be right. There's something better. We've invested this much in, and you hear it a lot from other businesses. Oh, we put this much money into it. We're going to continue on with it. What is the opportunity cost of not having the right foundations?
yeah, cost fallacy is a big problem. I mean, it's kind of like when you should review your mobile phone plans. People talk about your own mortgages of your house. Like, how often should you revisit that?
Hmm.
Guilty. I don't do enough of that. But you're right. I mean, technology is no different.
Well, I think we're talking about things like SEO and load times and all that sort of stuff, and a lot of times people will spend, the first thing they'll do is they'll go, oh, I need SEO, and they'll spend thousands of dollars on, um, you know, reducing image sizes, adding keywords, all those sorts of things. When some of the biggest and fastest and easiest and cheapest performance gains can just be done by having a good quality web host, or even making sure that the server is in the country that you're actually serving the website in. So like we've been raising servers in UK, Europe, US, and having that localization means that now it ranks better on Google because the server is where the most visitors are, particularly like .au and .au, .uk and UK. So naturally, it's going to rank higher.
Well, as I mentioned, I've done a lot of web conferencing for many, many years. And an easy, simple thing you can do is if you're connecting with someone in New York, clap and have another screen and watch the clap to come back. How long it takes, like so that data had to be transmitted through all sorts of different places to get to the person. And if I'm in Sydney and I'm talking to someone in New York, the jitter, how long it takes, can be quite considerable. Well, that's going to be the same for every bit of data, not just web conferencing.
Yeah, and I think web conferencing data gets packet priority, so
Yes.
it'll go through first in front of everything else. So um, awesome. Well, it's been really good having you guys here today. I guess for anyone listening, if you're interested in finding anything more about Cool Runnings Business Solutions, you can go to crbiz.com.au. And if you want to learn more about physics education, FIZZICS, you can go to physicseducation.com.au. But it's been really fantastic having you guys. Thank you very much for coming along. And if you're listening to the podcast and you have any questions or you'd like to be on the show, you can check out rippahosting.com.au. Otherwise, thank you for listening and take care.
Audio Jungle.